In this video, we are seeing only the parts of life of St Rose where there is the baby Jesus. St Rose of Lima believed that everything was possible for those who have faith in God. Even as she was just learning to walk, her mother and father noticed her great interest and devotion to the holy cards, statues, crucifixes, etc. By age 5, St Rose wanted to learn how to read and write, but there was nobody who was free to help her. Her mother Maria had tried to teach her, but soon grew tired and gave up. So the child decided to pray to the child Jesus, saying to her mom, "Since no one has time to teach me things, I am going to ask Jesus to do it. He can do anything, can't he?" Thus, in her childlike simplicity and faith, Rose began to recite the following prayer: "O Jesus, help me to know and to love you, and teach me to read and write." One day, St. Rose told to her mother that she knew how to read and write. She told her mother that it was the child Jesus who had taught her. Her mother was in disbelief, but St. Rose proved to her mother that she knew how to read by reading from a book about St. Catherine of Siena. Just as St. Rose had said, it was the little child Jesus who worked a wonderful miracle by teaching St. Rose how to read and write. As St. Rose grew older, so did her love for Jesus and also for her neighbors. She had great compassion towards those who were sick. Eventually, a room in her house was set aside for her to care for the poor and sick in her area. It became known as the infirmary. No matter how sickening or contagious their disease might be, she did not refuse to help anyone. In time, a number of people began reporting that they had been cured at the infirmary, claiming that it was after St. Rose's little statue of the child Jesus which touched them. St. Rose herself called the little statue the Little Doctor. At the age of 20, St. Rose was undecided as to which path the Lord wanted her to take. A Carmelite monastery had invited her to join them, a new establishment of poor clerics, and the Augustinian convent of the Incarnation also extended invitations to her. In doubt as to her vocation, she went to the Lady Chapel in the Dominican church to pray to the Virgin Mary. When she tried to rise from prayer, she found out that she couldn't move. She called her brother to help her, but even he was unable to move her. She then took this as a sign from God that she was to keep to her original plan of being a Dominican. When St. Rose told this to her parents that she desired to join the Dominican order and become a nun, her parents refused their permission. This went on for some time until a compromise was finally reached. St. Rose was allowed to take the Dominican habit, but as a third order member and not as a nun in a convent, but she should be in house and she would continue to live at home with her parents. The Dominicans of Lima happily gave her the habit of their order, and St. Rose lived a hidden life of prayer and penance in her parents' house. With the help of her brother, she constructed a tiny little hovel in the corner of the family garden, where she would spend much of her time in prayer and contemplation. One Palm Sunday, as the palms were being distributed to the congregation, the sacristan missed to give palm branch to St. Rose, and so she walked along without a palm branch. She then stopped and looked up at a statue of Our Lady of the Rosary and asked forgiveness for being so disappointed at not having a palm branch. Suddenly, she saw the statue smile at her. St. Rose, touched to the very depths of her soul by this kindness, cried out, "Nevermore, O dearest Lady, will I take a palm branch from the hands of man. For you, O palm of virgins, will give me a never-fading one." And the Virgin Mary turned to the Christ child and asked for a favor of him. The child Jesus then turned to St. Rose and said, "Rose of my heart, be my spouse." St. Rose was so touched by this great condescension that she began to weep tears of joy. She humbly bowed her head in tears of thankfulness to the great joy that came over her, and she promised eternal fidelity to her beloved Jesus. So this was the story of the infant Jesus in the life of St. Rose of Lima. Thank you so much for watching.